The stars had never looked so close. Commander Jake Sullivan floated in the observation deck of the New Horizons, watching Jupiter's massive form slowly turn below them. After 3 years of construction and 2 years of testing, humanity had finally built a ship that could travel faster than light. Today was the day they would make history. "Jake, you need to see this," Lisa Carter called from the pilot station. Her voice carried an edge of excitement mixed with concern. Lisa had been flying since she was 16, starting with crop dusters in Kansas before joining the space program. If something in space worried her, it was worth attention, Jake pushed. Off from the observation window and drifted toward the bridge. The New Horizons was not a large ship by the standards they hoped to meet someday, but she was humanity's first real step into the galaxy. Her crew of 12 represented the best Earth had to offer. "What do you have, Lisa?" Jake asked, settling into his command chair. "Unknown contact, bearing to 7 Mark IV. It's big, Jake. Much bigger than us." Lisa's fingers danced over her controls, refining the sensor readings. "And it's not moving right. Looks like it might be in trouble." Bobby Chen looked up from his engineering station. Bobby had grown up in Detroit, fixing cars with his father before switching to spacecraft engines. He understood machines the way some people understood music. "I'm reading massive power fluctuations from whatever that is. Their reactor's about to go critical if they don't do something fast." Jake studied the main screen as the computer processed the sensor data. The object was definitely artificial, roughly 3 times the size of the New Horizons, but its design was unlike anything in human records. Smooth curves replaced the angular lines of human engineering. The whole seemed to shimmer with colors that had no names. "Dr. Brooks, what's your take?" Jake asked. Dr. Amanda Brooks had spent her career studying the possibility of alien life. She had written papers on how humans might react to first contact, but she had never expected to live through it herself. "If that's what I think it is, we're looking at our first proof that we're not alone in the universe." The ship shuddered slightly as Lisa adjusted their course toward the unknown vessel. "Jake, I'm picking up what might be a distress signal. It's not on any frequency we use, but the pattern suggests they're asking for help." Jake felt the weight of the moment. Every choice he made in the next few minutes would echo through human history. They had no protocols for this situation because no one had really believed they would encounter alien life so soon after developing faster-than-light travel. "Bobby, what's our status?" Jake asked. "All systems green. We've got power to spare, and our repair kits are fully stocked. If they need help, we can probably provide it." Jake nodded slowly. "Lisa, take us in. Nice and easy. We don't want to seem threatening." As the New Horizons approached the alien vessel, details became clearer. The ship was damaged badly. Sections of the hull had been torn away, revealing internal structures that glowed with soft blue light. Small explosions flickered along the ship's surface as failing systems gave up. "Reading life signs," Amanda reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "Definitely not human, but definitely alive." A new voice crackled over the communications system, speaking in sounds no human throat could make. The words were musical but urgent, rising and falling in patterns that suggested desperation. "Universal translators trying to process this," Bobby said, working frantically at his station. "Give me a minute." Jake watched the alien ship continue to break apart. Whatever had happened to it, the crew was running out of time. "Lisa, move us closer." "Bobby, get ready to extend our docking." "Tube, Jake, are you sure about this?" Amanda asked. "We don't know anything about their biology. They could be dangerous." "They could be," Jake agreed. "But right now they're dying and we can help. That's enough for me." The universal translator finally locked onto the alien language. The voice that came through the speakers was high and quick, filled with panic. "Please, anyone, we are failing. Our power core will explode soon. We cannot escape. Please, if someone receives this, remember that we tried to return home." Jake felt something tighten in his chest. Fear, desperation, the hope that someone might hear a final message. These were feelings he understood regardless of who was experiencing them. "Lisa, dock with them." "Bobby, prepare the emergency power transfer. We're going to help." the next. Our past in a blur of activity. The New Horizons carefully mated with the alien vessel's emergency port. Bobby managed to stabilize their power core just minutes before it would have exploded. Lisa used the ship's tractor beam to help seal the worst hull breaches. When the immediate crisis passed, Jake found himself standing in the New Horizons' small medical bay, looking at the first alien being any human had ever seen. The creature was tall and thin, with skin that shifted between blue and green depending on the light. It had 4 arms and large eyes that seemed to take up half its face. Dr. Brooks was running every scan she could think of while trying not to seem threatening. "Its name is Kexvar," Amanda reported. "The translator is working better now. It's grateful for our help." Kexvar spoke in its musical language, and the translator rendered its words in calm, measured English. "You saved our lives. We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. But I must ask, what species are you? Your ship's design is unknown to me." "We're humans," Jake said, speaking slowly to give the translator time to work. "We come from the 3rd planet in this system, Earth." The change in Kexvar was immediate and dramatic. Its skin flushed deep purple, and all 4 arms began to shake. It spoke rapidly, too fast for the translator to keep up at first. Impossible, the translation finally came through. "No species develops space travel from a Class 12 death world. The Galactic Council has been monitoring your world for 2 centuries. You should all be dead." Jake exchanged glances with his crew. "Death world? What do you mean by that?" Kexvar's eyes grew even larger, if that was possible. "Your planet is one of the most dangerous worlds the Council has ever catalogued. Violent weather systems, extreme temperature variations, toxic atmospheric conditions in many regions, and predator species that hunt in organized packs. Most civilized species would consider your world uninhabitable." Amanda stepped forward. "We've always thought Earth was pretty normal. Sure, we have storms and earthquakes, but every planet has natural disasters. Natural disasters." Kexvar's voice rose in pitch. "Your world experiences hurricanes that can destroy entire cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, and volcanic eruptions that block out your sun for months. Most worlds experience such events once every few thousand years. Yours has them constantly." Bobby laughed. "That's just weather. You learn to deal with it." "Learn to deal with it," Kexvar repeated, as if the words made no sense. "And the predators?" "Your world has creatures that actively hunt other species for food." "Well, yeah," Lisa said.
That's how nature works, isn't it?"
"Some animals eat plants, some eat other animals." Kexvar went very still. "You come from a world of hunters and killers, where the strong consume the weak, where the very planet tries to destroy its inhabitants every day, and you survived. Not only survived, but developed technology advanced enough to reach the stars." Jake was beginning to understand that humanity's first contact with alien life was not going the way anyone had expected. "Is that unusual? Unusual?" Kexvar's skin began shifting through colors rapidly. "In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever developed space travel while living on a world classified as uninhabitable. Most species only reach the stars after their worlds become peaceful and safe." The alien looked at each human in turn, its large eyes filled with something that might have been awe or terror. "The Galactic Council believes that any species capable of surviving on a death world would be too dangerous to contact. They have been debating for decades whether your species should be destroyed before you develop interstellar travel." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "Destroyed. They believe that Deathworlders would bring violence and chaos to the galaxy. That species capable of surviving in constant conflict would be unable to coexist peacefully with civilized worlds." Amanda spoke quietly. "Are they right? Are we too dangerous?" Kexvar studied her for a long moment. "You risked your lives to save strangers from a different species. You shared your power and resources without asking for payment. You treated our injuries with care and gentleness." The alien's skin settled into a soft golden color. "Perhaps. The Council's fears are unfounded, but I fear they will not be easily convinced." Jake looked out the viewport at the damaged alien ship, now safely attached to their own. In the distance, Earth hung like a blue marble against the black of space. Humanity had just learned that they were not alone in the universe, and that their new neighbors might consider them a threat to be eliminated. "Kexvar," Jake said slowly, "I think we need to talk." 2 weeks after rescuing Kexvar, Jake Sullivan found himself staring at the largest artificial structure he had ever seen. Nexus Prime stretched across space like a small metal moon, its surface covered with docking bays, communication arrays, and weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "First contact ceremony," Jake muttered, reading the official invitation for the 100th time. "They make it sound like a party." Dr. Richard Hayes adjusted his diplomatic uniform and tried to look confident. Richard had spent 20 years studying international relations on Earth, but nothing had prepared him for galactic politics. "Remember, we're representing all of humanity here. Every word we say will be analyzed by 40 different species." Captain Maria Santos checked her sidearm one more time. The weapon was mostly ceremonial, but she felt naked without it. Maria had served in 3 different conflicts on Earth before joining the space program. Her job was to keep the diplomats alive, but she suspected that might be harder than anyone expected. The New Horizons docked at Bay 17, and Jake led his small team through corridors that seemed designed by artists rather than engineers. Everything curved and flowed in ways that hurt to look at. The walls showed colors that had no names, and the air tasted of flowers Jake had never smelled. "Breathe normally," Dr. Amanda Brooks reminded them over the CUM system. "The atmosphere is safe for humans, but stay alert for any changes in how you feel." They were met by a delegation of 3 aliens. The first was tall and thin, like Kexvar, but with silver skin that reflected light like mirrors. The second looked like a walking crystal formation, each movement creating musical tones. The third was barely visible, more like a patch of moving air than a solid being. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," the silver alien said through a translation device. "I am Ambassador Zerolin of the Ethereal Collective. These are my colleagues from the Crystal Dominion and the Atmospheric Alliance." Jake stepped forward and tried to smile in a way that wouldn't show his teeth. Kexvar had warned them that showing teeth was considered a threat display by most species. "Thank you for having us. I'm Commander Jake Sullivan, representing Earth and humanity." They were led through corridors filled with beings that defied imagination. Some floated without touching the ground. Others moved on dozens of tiny legs. A few seemed to be made of pure energy contained in mechanical suits. Jake tried not to stare, but everything was so different from anything on Earth. The main assembly hall was enormous. Hundreds of aliens filled seats arranged in perfect circles, each section designed for different types of biology. Some areas were filled with water, others with various gases. A few sections appeared to be pure vacuum. Jake and his team were given seats in what appeared to be the center of attention. Every alien eye, sensor, or optical device in the room focused on them. The weight of their attention was almost physical. "Citizens of the galaxy," a voice boomed through the hall. "We gather today to meet the representatives of species designation X7439, who call themselves humans." A massive holographic display showed images of Earth from space. Jake felt a surge of homesickness, seeing the blue and white marble floating in the black. Then the display changed to show images that made his blood run cold. The first image showed a hurricane from above, a spiral of destruction hundreds of miles across. The narrator's voice continued in a tone of academic interest. "The humans evolved on a world where atmospheric disturbances regularly generate wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. These storms occur multiple times per year across their planet's surface." Murmurs of shock rippled through the assembly. Jake glanced at Maria, who shrugged. "That's just hurricane season," she whispered. The next image showed an earthquake's aftermath. Buildings reduced to rubble and roads split like broken bones. Seismic activity on their world regularly measures above magnitude 8 on their own measurement scale. Their cities are built with the expectation that the ground will move violently beneath them. More images followed, volcanic eruptions painting the sky red with ash, tornadoes carving paths of destruction across plains, tsunamis washing away coastlines. Each image drew louder gasps from the alien audience. Furthermore, the narrator continued, their world contains predator species that actively hunt other life forms. The humans themselves evolved as persistence. Hunters capable of tracking prey across vast distances until the prey dies of exhaustion. Dr. Richard Hayes stood up, his face red with embarrassment. If I may clarify, we don't actually hunt other sentient species. We've moved beyond that. Stage of our development? The silver-skinned ambassador, Zerilyn, gestured for him to continue. Please elaborate on your species' current behavior. Richard smiled, trying to project confidence. Well, we've developed agriculture and animal husbandry. We raise livestock for food production, rather than hunting wild animals. The effect of his words on the assembly was immediate and dramatic. Several aliens made sounds that the translators couldn't process. Others began what appeared to be heated discussions in their native languages. A few simply got up and left. Livestock? Ambassador Zerilyn asked, her voice carefully controlled. You mean you deliberately breed other species for the purpose of killing and consuming them? Richard realized he had made a mistake, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Yes, that's how we produce meat for food. Is that unusual? The crystal being beside Zerilyn created a sound like breaking glass. The translator rendered it as something like screaming. Several more aliens left the assembly hall. Captain Maria Santos leaned forward. I think we need to explain our food chain. On Earth, some animals eat plants, and other animals eat those animals. Humans are omnivores, which means we eat both plants and meat. If the previous revelation had caused concern, this one caused panic. Aliens throughout the hall began making distress calls in dozens of different languages. The atmospheric being flickered and nearly dispersed entirely. You consume the flesh of other living beings? Zerilyn asked, her silver skin now showing patches of dark color that might have been horror. Only non-sentient ones, Dr. Amanda Brooks said quickly. We don't eat anything that can think or feel emotions the way we do. A new voice cut through. The chaos. It belonged to a large, armored alien that Jake hadn't noticed before. And how do you determine what can think or feel? Do you test each creature before you kill it? Jake felt the conversation spinning out of control. We've developed ethical guidelines about what species we consider appropriate for food production. We don't eat anything that shows signs of intelligence or complex emotions. The armored alien stood up, and Jake could see weapons built into its shell. I am Supreme Admiral Thekmore of the Hegemony Defense Force. I have reviewed the intelligence, REPORTS, on your species, and I have questions about these ethical guidelines you mention. The main display changed again, this time showing footage that Jake recognized as human entertainment. Movies, television shows, and video games flashed past, each one showing humans engaged in combat, warfare, or violence. Your species appears. To derive entertainment from depictions of organized violence, Admiral Thekmore continued. You have developed thousands of different methods for killing members of your own species. Your history is an unbroken chain of warfare, conquest, and destruction. Maria Santos felt her temper rising. That's entertainment, not reality. Humans aren't naturally violent. We've had wars, yes, but we've also had long periods of peace. Long periods? The Admiral's voice carried what might have been amusement. Your longest period without active warfare anywhere on your planet was approximately 26 years. Most civilized species go centuries between conflicts. Dr. Hayes tried to regain control of the situation. Violence in human entertainment is fantasy. It allows us to explore conflict in safe ways without actually harming anyone. It's actually a sign of our peaceful nature that we prefer imaginary violence to real violence. The explanations seemed to make things worse. Aliens throughout the hall were now openly discussing what appeared to be defensive measures. Jake could hear words like containment and preemptive action coming through the translators. Bobby Chen's voice crackled through Jake's communicator. Jake, you need to know something. I've been monitoring their communications, and they're talking about quarantine protocols. Some of them want to trap us here. Jake stood up, and the entire hall fell silent. Hundreds of alien beings watched him with expressions he couldn't read but that felt hostile. "I understand that we seem frightening to you," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. "Our world is dangerous, and we've had to develop ways to survive that danger. But we came here in peace. We rescued Kexvar because it was the right thing to do, not because we expected anything in return." Admiral Deckmore's weapons systems made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. "Speak of peace while carrying weapons. Your captain has a device designed specifically for killing other beings." Maria's hand moved instinctively to her sidearm. "This is ceremonial. It's part of my dress uniform." Ceremonial weapons," the Admiral repeated. "You honor the tools of death as part of your formal dress. You claim to be peaceful." Ambassador Zerlin raised one of her 4 arms for silence. "I believe we have learned enough for today." Jake Sullivan sat in what the aliens called a guest room but felt more like a prison cell. The walls were smooth and white, with no visible doors or windows. Food appeared through slots in the wall 3 times a day, though it tasted like cardboard, mixed with flowers. "Day 7 of our diplomatic vacation," Maria Santos said, doing push-ups in the corner. She had been exercising constantly since they arrived, partly to stay in shape and partly because she couldn't stand sitting still. Dr. Richard Hayes looked up from his notes. "I've been thinking about what went wrong in that meeting." The wall suddenly became transparent, revealing Ambassador Zerlin standing outside. She touched something, and a section of the wall disappeared like it had never existed. "Commander Sullivan," she said, her silver skin showing patches of blue. "That might have been nervousness. The Council has reached a decision about your species." Jake stood up, trying to read her expression. "Are we going home?" "That depends on you," Zerlin replied. "The Council has voted to implement the Deathworlder protocol. You will be given 3 tests to prove that humans can coexist peacefully with other species. If you succeed, Earth will be invited to join the galactic community. If you fail," she didn't finish the sentence, but Jake understood. "And if we refuse the tests, and your species will be quarantined to your solar system indefinitely. No trade, no communication, no contact with the galaxy." Maria stopped exercising. "What kind of tests?"
Yes.
"The first test is social integration. You will spend time on Serenity Station, a resort world where many species come to relax and interact peacefully. You must demonstrate that humans can socialize without causing conflict or fear." Dr. Hayes nodded. "That sounds reasonable. We can do that." "The second test is military cooperation. You will attend the War College of Drakmor, where you will train alongside cadets from other species. You must show that humans can work with others in combat situations without becoming aggressive or dominant." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Military training with aliens who already thought humans were dangerous predators. And the third test, disaster response. You will help with emergency relief operations on the planet Harmony. You must prove that humans can help others in crisis situations without taking advantage of their weakness. The test sounded fair, but Jake suspected there would be complications. Nothing about first contact had been simple so far. 3 days later, Jake found himself standing on the observation deck of Serenity Station, watching alien families play in pools of liquid that wasn't quite water. The station was beautiful, with gardens that grew in impossible spirals and buildings that seemed to float without support. "Remember," Dr. Hayes said quietly, "we're being watched constantly. Every interaction will be analyzed." Their first challenge came within hours. Jake was walking through what appeared to be a shopping area when alarms began blaring. Pleasant background music stopped, replaced by urgent announcements in dozens of languages. "Radiation storm approaching," the translation system announced. "All beings must evacuate to the central core immediately." Jake watched the aliens around him begin to panic. They moved slowly, their bodies apparently not designed for quick movement. Some were already showing signs of radiation sickness just from the advance effects of the storm. "Jake," Maria's voice crackled through his communicator. "The station's shields are failing. If we don't help these people get to safety, a lot of them are going to die." Jake made a decision that would either save his species or doom them. Maria, take the left corridor, Dr. Hayes. Start organizing the evacuation. I'll get the families with young ones. For the next 2 hours, the humans worked frantically to move alien civilians to safety. Jake carried a crystalline being whose structure was already cracking from radiation exposure. Maria guided a group of gaseous aliens through corridors that were becoming increasingly dangerous. Dr. Hayes coordinated with station security to ensure no one was left behind. The radiation storm that would have killed most aliens was barely noticeable to the humans. They had evolved on a planet where cosmic radiation was just another environmental hazard. Their bodies processed the exposure without difficulty. When the storm passed, Jake found himself surrounded by grateful aliens. A being that looked like a walking tree placed one of its branches gently on his shoulder. "You saved my offspring," it said through the translator. "I was wrong about your species." Ambassador Zerilyn appeared, her silver skin showing colors Jake had never seen before. "Remarkable," she said. "The radiation levels in those corridors would have killed most species within minutes. You treated it like a minor inconvenience." "We're used to radiation," Jake said simply. "Earth's atmosphere doesn't block as much cosmic radiation as most worlds. We've adapted to handle it." The second test took place on Drakmor, a planet that served as the galaxy's premier military academy. Captain Maria Santos and Bobby Chen were assigned to a training unit with cadets from 6 different species. The first day of training was a disaster. The alien cadets moved too slowly, communicated too quietly, and seemed terrified of making mistakes. What the instructors called extreme combat scenarios were less dangerous than routine training exercises on Earth.
Gotcha.
Maria whispered. During a break, "Are you seeing this?" Bobby nodded. "The obstacle course they showed us yesterday, my little sister could complete it. These aliens have never faced real danger." The breaking point came during a simulated battle exercise. The alien cadets were supposed to work together to capture a fortified position, but they kept waiting for permission before making any moves. When enemy fire started, most of them froze in place. Maria made a decision that went against every diplomatic instruction she had received. She started giving orders. "Blue team, flank left through the crater field. Red team, suppressing fire on the main bunker. Green team, prepare for breach operations." The alien cadets responded to her commands, like they had been waiting for real leadership. Within minutes, they had captured the objective that had stumped previous classes for hours. The training instructor, a heavily armored being named Colonel Vexthor, approached Maria after the exercise. "In 40 years of military service, I have never seen cadets perform with such coordination. How did you make them work together so effectively?" Maria shrugged. "I just told them what to do. On Earth, military units operate as teams. Everyone has a job, and everyone does their job. But you gave orders to beings from species that traditionally hate each other. The Zilithians and the hegemony forces have been enemies for centuries. So, right now they're all soldiers trying to complete the same mission. Personal feelings don't matter when lives are at stake." Colonel Vexthor's expression was unreadable behind his armor. "Your species has been at war for most of your recorded history. You should be experts at hatred and conflict. Yet you treat former enemies as potential allies." Bobby Chen stepped forward.
Ow.
"War taught us that enemies today might be friends tomorrow. We learned to work with anyone who was willing to work with us." The third test began badly and got worse. Jake's team was transported to Harmony, a planet the aliens described as suffering from a catastrophic natural disaster. When they arrived, Jake spent 10 minutes looking for the disaster before realizing he was standing in it. Dr. Amanda Brooks asked, staring at what appeared to be a light rainstorm. The alien emergency coordinator, a being called Rescue Leader Mextal, gestured frantically at the sky. "The atmospheric disturbance has reached Category 5 severity. Wind speeds have exceeded 50 kilometers per hour. The precipitation contains trace amounts of acidic compounds." Jake looked at his team. On Earth, they would call this a spring shower. The acidic compounds were less concentrated than normal rain in most Earth cities. How can we help? Dr. Hayes asked, trying to sound concerned about whether that wouldn't cancel a picnic on Earth. 12,000 civilians must be evacuated from the impact zone before the storm intensifies, Mextall replied. Our emergency crews cannot operate. In these conditions, for the next 18 hours, the humans worked in conditions the aliens considered impossibly dangerous. They moved families, carried supplies, and organized evacuation centers while the deadly storm raged around them. Dr. Brooks set up medical stations to treat aliens who were suffering from what they called severe atmospheric pressure syndrome, but which appeared to be anxiety attacks caused by the weather. Jake coordinated supply deliveries through conditions that would barely rate a weather advisory on Earth. The most challenging part wasn't the weather. It was watching beings who had never experienced real hardship struggle with a situation that humans would consider mildly inconvenient. Jake found himself genuinely impressed by their courage in facing what was, for them, a genuine crisis. When the storm passed, the alien civilians gathered around the humans with expressions of awe and gratitude. Children from a dozen different species offered gifts made from whatever materials they could find. You worked for hours in conditions that would have killed our emergency crews, Mextall said, his voice filled with wonder, and you did it too. Save beings you had never met, from species you had never encountered. Jake felt embarrassed by the attention. Anyone would have done the same thing. 3 months after Earth joined the galactic community, Captain Danny Williams stood on the bridge of his cargo ship Liberty Bell, staring at the strangest distress call he had ever received. The message was encrypted with codes that officially didn't exist, sent by people who weren't supposed to know humans existed. Captain, his navigator Steve Johnson called from his station. I've got the source location. It's coming from the Outer Rim, Sector 77 Alpha. That's way outside normal shipping lanes. Danny scratched his beard and studied the message. Again, someone calling themselves the Terran Mining Guild was asking for help, claiming they represented workers from dozens of species, who were being treated like slaves by the Galactic Council's mining operations. Katie, what do you think? Danny asked his chief engineer. Katie Morrison looked up from her repair work, oil stains covering her coveralls. Could be a trap, could be genuine. But if there really are people out there who need help, we can't. Just ignore them. Dr. Helen Davis, the ship's medical officer, nodded her agreement. The message mentioned workplace conditions that would be illegal on Earth. If even half of what they're claiming is true, we need to investigate. Danny made his decision. Steve, set course for the coordinates, and send a message back to Earth. Someone should know where we're going, just in case. The journey to the Outer Rim took 5 days through hyperspace corridors that most ships avoided. When they dropped back into normal space, Danny found himself looking at an asteroid field that stretched beyond the horizon. Hundreds of mining platforms drifted between the rocks, connected by transport tubes and communication arrays. Holy cow, Steve whispered. Look at the size of this operation. The mining platforms were massive, some large enough to house entire cities. But as the Liberty Bell moved closer, Danny could see that something was wrong. Many of the platforms showed signs of damage. Some appeared to be completely abandoned. Incoming transmission, Katie announced. It's from the largest platform. Designation Prospector's Hope. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of what appeared to be a mining control room. 3 aliens stood together, but they looked different from the well-fed, confident beings Danny had seen at Nexus Prime. These aliens were thin, dirty, and exhausted. Human vessel. This is Foreman Crackvell of the Terran Mining Guild, the center. Alien said, We received your response to our distress call. Are you really here to help? Danny stepped forward. I'm Captain Danny Williams of the merchant ship Liberty Bell. We got your message about working conditions out here. What's the situation? The alien's expression changed to something that might have been hope. The Council's mining overseers treat us like we are disposable. They force us to work in conditions that kill dozens of workers every month. When we complain, they cut our food rations and extend our contracts. A second alien, this one with blue-green skin, moved into view. I am Engineer Pexnor. The mining equipment we are given would not be considered safe on any civilized world. The radiation shielding is minimal, The life support systems fail constantly, and the extraction tools have safety features that have been disabled to increase productivity. Danny felt his anger rising.
What kind of conditions are you talking about? Radiation exposure levels that cause cellular damage within hours, Pexnor replied. Atmospheric pressure variations that can crush unprotected beings.
Work shifts lasting 36 hours without rest periods. And if anyone dies, the overseers simply mark them as equipment failures in their reports. Katie had been listening with growing outrage. Captain, we need to see this for ourselves. An hour later, Danny found himself wearing a full environmental suit, following Crackvell through mining tunnels that would have been condemned on Earth within minutes. The radiation levels were high enough to kill most humans in a matter of hours, but the alien workers had no choice but to endure them. How long do workers typically survive in these conditions? Dr. Davis asked, taking readings with her medical scanner. 6 months for the strong ones, Crackvell replied. 3 months for the others. The Council considers this acceptable losses for maximum resource extraction. Danny stopped in front of a mining platform where workers were cutting into an asteroid with tools that sparked and smoked. This equipment is falling apart. Why don't they give you proper tools? Proper tools cost money, a new voice said. Danny turned to see a human figure approaching through the tunnel. The person removed their helmet, revealing a woman with graying hair and scars across her face. Captain Sarah Blake, formerly of Earth's Deep Space Mining Consortium, she said, extending a gloved hand. I've been working with the Guild for 2 months now, trying to help organize these people. Danny shook her hand. How did you get out here? Same way you did. Got a distress call and couldn't ignore it. Sarah gestured around the tunnel. What you're seeing here is slavery, pure and simple. The Council sells mining rights to corporations that treat workers like disposable equipment. As they continued the tour, Danny began to understand why the Mining Guild had specifically asked for human help. The working conditions that were killing alien workers were dangerous, but manageable for humans. The radiation levels were high, but not immediately lethal. The atmospheric pressure was unstable, but within human tolerance. The thing is, Sarah explained as they watched alien workers struggle with equipment that kept malfunctioning. Humans could work these mines safely with the right equipment, and we could teach these people how to improve their safety measures. Katie was examining one of the mining extractors when it suddenly exploded in a shower of sparks. The alien operating it stumbled backward, clearly injured. Without thinking, Katie rushed forward and began working on the damaged machine. Katie, what are you doing? Danny called. Fixing this piece of junk, Katie replied, her hands already deep in the machine's control systems. The safety interlocks have been bypassed, and the power regulation system is completely fried. No wonder these things keep exploding. Within 20 minutes, Katie had the extractor running smoothly for the first time in months. The alien workers gathered around her with expressions of amazement as she explained the simple modifications that would prevent a prewender centimeter with the FFEVED at the Pimp and bad. You fixed in minutes what has been broken for weeks, Pexnor said. How is this possible? Katie shrugged. Basic mechanical engineering. These machines are actually pretty well designed, but someone disabled all the safety features to make them run faster. All I did was put the safety systems back the way they're supposed to be. Dr. Davis was treating the injured worker with medical supplies from the Liberty Bell. This worker has been exposed to radiation levels that would require immediate hospitalization. On Earth, how long has this been going on? Months, Crackvell replied. The medical facilities here are designed for minor injuries only. Serious radiation poisoning is considered a terminal condition. Helen looked up from her patient. Not with proper treatment, it isn't, This worker will make a full recovery with the right medications and care. Word of the human's arrival spread quickly through the mining platforms. Within hours, Danny found himself meeting with representatives from dozens of species, all with similar stories of dangerous working conditions and abusive overseers. The council's corporations promise good wages and fair treatment, explained a delegate from the Crystalline Workers Union. But once we arrive, they extend our contracts indefinitely and reduce our pay to cover the cost of transportation and housing. Danny was beginning to understand that the situation was much larger than a simple labor dispute. How many workers are we talking about, across all the mining operations in the Outer Rim? Perhaps 50,000 beings from over 30 species, Sarah said, and it's getting worse. The council is opening new mining sites every month, always in locations too dangerous for their own citizens to work. Steve Johnson had been monitoring communications from his position on the Liberty Bell. Captain, you need to hear this. I'm picking up council military transmissions. They're deploying warships to this sector. Danny felt his stomach drop. How many ships? At least 12, possibly more. And they're not coming for a friendly visit. I'm hearing words like containment operation and labor disruption. Crackvells. Skin turned a pale yellow color that Danny had learned indicated fear. If the council military arrives, they will arrest all of us for breach of contract. The humans will be charged with interfering in galactic commerce. Danny looked around at the alien workers who had gathered in the control room. They were looking at him with hope in their eyes, but he could see the fear there too. These people had risked everything just by asking for help. Sarah, how many humans are there in the Outer Rim now? Maybe 200 spread across 30 different systems. All volunteers who came out here after hearing about the working conditions. Danny made a decision that would change everything. Steve sent a message to Earth. Tell them we need ships, supplies, and people. Lots of people. What are you thinking, Captain? Katie asked. I'm thinking that the Galactic Council is about to learn what happens when you threaten people under human protection, Danny replied. And I'm thinking they're not going to like the lesson. General Patricia Reynolds stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance, watching dozens of ships from across the galaxy prepare for the largest battle in galactic history. 6 months after the mining crisis began, the conflict had spread to over 200 systems. What started as a labor dispute had become a full-scale revolution. We were receiving final position reports from all fleet elements, reported Lieutenant Colonel Frank Chen, her communications officer. Frank was Bobby Chen's older brother, and he had the same gift for making complex technology work under impossible conditions. Patricia studied the tactical display showing the Nexus system. The massive space station Nexus Prime sat at the center, surrounded by the largest concentration of military vessels the galaxy had ever seen. Supreme Admiral Vekmore had gathered ships from 50 different species, determined to crush the rebellion before it could spread further. How many ships are we facing? Patricia asked. Latest count shows 3,000 council vessels, replied Commander Lisa Carter, now serving as Patricia's tactical advisor. They have us outnumbered 5-1. Patricia smiled grimly. Those are better odds than we usually face. The communication system crackled with an incoming transmission from Jake Sullivan, now commanding the exploration vessel New Horizons 2. Patricia, the Free Worlds Alliance fleet is in position. We have ships from 37 different species ready to follow your lead. Patricia looked around the command center at the mix of human and alien officers working together. Dr. Amanda Brooks was coordinating with alien xenobiologists to predict enemy tactics. Captain Maria Santos was training alien marines in human combat techniques. Bobby Chen worked alongside Zilithian engineers to upgrade weapon systems with technology that combined the best of both species. All ships. This is General Reynolds, Patricia announced over the fleet communication system. Today we're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for the right of every being in this galaxy to live with dignity and freedom. Remember your training, trust your allies, and let's show the Council what happens when the galaxy unites. The battle began with a display of firepower. That would have been impressive by Earth standards. It seemed almost primitive to the humans who had learned to fight in asteroid fields and radiation storms. Council ships fired in neat formations, or weapons designed for ceremonial combat between civilized species, the Free Worlds Alliance fleet responded with tactics that no military academy had ever taught. Human pilots like Steve Johnson led mixed squadrons through debris fields that would have destroyed purely alien formations. They used the wreckage of destroyed asteroids as cover, flying through conditions that made their alien wingmates nervous, but felt familiar to humans, who had learned to navigate Earth's chaotic space environment. "Target the Council command ships," Patricia ordered. "Danny Williams, take your merchant fleet and hit their supply lines. They're not used to fighting an enemy that attacks their logistics." Captain Danny Williams acknowledged the order from his position aboard the Liberty Bell, now serving as the flagship for a squadron of converted cargo ships. The former merchant vessels had been equipped with weapons by alien engineers and armor by human mechanics, creating hybrid warships that confused Council tactical computers. The first major breakthrough came when Katie Morrison, working with Crystalline Dominion engineers, managed to disrupt the Council's communication network. The alien military relied on centralized command structures that couldn't adapt when their communications failed. "Their fleet coordination is breaking down," reported Dr. Richard Hayes from his position as intelligence coordinator. "Individual ships are reverting to species-specific tactics instead of working together." Patricia saw the opportunity immediately. All human squadron leaders implement pack tactics. Drive wedges between their formations and force them to fight as separate fleets instead of a unified force. What followed was a masterclass in human military doctrine applied to space warfare. Human commanders used their experience with combined arms tactics to coordinate attacks between different types of ships. They employed deception and misdirection to make their smaller fleet appear larger than it was. Most importantly, they used their ability to remain calm under pressure to adapt their strategies as the battle developed. The turning point came when Admiral Vekmore made a critical error. Frustrated by the unexpected resistance, he ordered his personal battle group to attack the human flagship directly. It was exactly the kind of aggressive move that human commanders had been trained to exploit. "Lisa, prepare the Deathworld maneuver," Patricia ordered. Lisa Carter smiled as she entered commands that would have terrified any sane pilot. The Defiance dove directly into the Nexus System's asteroid belt, using the gravitational field of the largest asteroids to slingshot toward Decamore's position. Council ships tried to follow, but found themselves unable to navigate the chaotic gravitational fields that humans considered routine flying conditions. One by one, enemy vessels collided with asteroids or were torn apart by gravitational stress. "Ma'am, we've got clear shots at their command ship," reported the weapons officer. "Negative," Patricia replied. "Hail Admiral Vekmore." The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the Council command ship. Control panels. And Admiral Vekmore's armor showed signs of battle damage. Admiral Patricia said, "You're surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender now, and we can end this without more bloodshed." Vekmore's weapon systems made clicking sounds that the translator rendered as bitter laughter. "Surrender to Deathworlders. Never. We will fight until every ship is destroyed rather than submit to rule by predators." "We don't want to rule anyone," Patricia replied. "We want freedom for all species to govern themselves." Vekmore spat. "Spat. Your species conquered your own world through violence. You will do the same to the galaxy." Ambassador Zerlin's voice suddenly cut through the communication channel. "Admiral Vekmore, you are relieved of command by order of the Emergency Council." The screen split, showing Zerlin speaking from what appeared to be Nexus Prime's governing chamber. Behind her, Patricia could see representatives from dozens of species. "The Council has voted to accept the Free Worlds Alliance's terms for peace," Zerlin continued. "The war is over." Admiral Vekmore's image disappeared as his ship powered down its weapons. Across the battle zone, Council vessels began standing down, their crews either surrendering or joining the Alliance fleet. 6 months later, Sullivan stood in the newly constructed Assembly Hall of the Galactic Federation, watching representatives from over 300 species work together to draft a new constitution. The building was located on New Terra, the first mixed-species colony world, where human children played alongside alien younglings in parks that combined earth plants with vegetation from a dozen other worlds. "Hard to believe how much has changed, Dr. Amanda Brooks said, joining Jake at the observation window. She now served as the Federation's chief xenopsychologist, helping different species understand each other's cultures and needs. Jake nodded, watching a group of former council officers working alongside rebel leaders to design new trade agreements. A year ago, they thought we were monsters. Now they're asking us to help them build a better galaxy. Bobby Chen approached, carrying a tablet showing the latest engineering reports. The joint technology projects are exceeding all expectations. Human durability engineering combined with alien precision manufacturing is producing ships and equipment that neither species could build alone. Captain Maria Santos walked up, still wearing her military uniform, but now serving as director of the Federation Defense Academy. The integrated training programs are working too. Human tactics combined with alien technical skills are creating officers who can handle any situation. Patricia Reynolds entered the observation area, having just finished a meeting with the new Federation Council. The Council has approved funding for the next phase of expansion. 50 new colony worlds, all designed from the beginning for multiple species. Jake felt a sense of satisfaction as he watched the diverse crowd below. Humans worked alongside. Zilithian's crystalline beings collaborated with atmospheric entities. And former enemies from a dozen different conflicts had found common ground. You know what I find most interesting? Dr. Amanda Brooks said. The species that were most afraid of us are now our strongest supporters. The Ethereal Collective wants to establish joint research stations. The Crystal Dominion is asking for human engineers to help design safer mining equipment. Because they learned what we tried to tell them from the beginning, Jake replied. Being from a dangerous world doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you strong enough to protect others. A chime sounded through the building, calling the representatives back to their work. As Jake watched the aliens and humans return to their discussions, he realized that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their military skills. It was the simple understanding that strength should be used too. Protect the weak, that different didn't mean enemy, and that the best societies were built by working together rather than fighting apart. The Deathworlders had risen, and the galaxy no longer trembled in fear.